Moonlight knifed through the torn shutters of the tower room, laying a blade of silver across Rhaegar Targaryen's cheek as he watched Lyanna cradle the infant. A hush had fallen over Dragonstone, broken only by the mournful sigh of the waves, but Rhaegar heard the kingdom's clamor in every gust of wind. The rebel storm brewed across the narrow sea's western shore, and King's Landing's spires glimmered like embers awaiting the breath that would turn them to flame. In that fragile pause before dawn, he allowed himself neither regret nor doubt, only urgency. He closed the distance to mother and child, his cloak whispering against stone. "If they reach this island," he said, voice low, "I fear even the seas will not protect him." Lyanna's gray eyes never left the babe. Her fingers smoothed the wisp of midnight hair curling along his brow. She knew the weight of secrets, yet the greater burden was always departure. Rhaegar knelt, brushing a kiss over Lyanna's knuckles, then the smallest of touches to his son's head. The boy gurgled, unconcerned by crowns or wars. Rhaegar's gaze drifted to the narrow window where dawn glimmered like a candle behind a veil. "Qarth lies farther than any raven's wings," he murmured. "Farther even than vengeance." He spoke of the port beyond the Jade Gates as other men spoke of myth, yet his map-crowded study told a different story. Qarth, the splendid city of vaults and veiled merchants, adrift between desert and sea, a place where a nameless child might become no one's threat. Lyanna touched Rhaegar's cheek, cool fingers against feverish skin. "Beyond the red waste," she whispered, tasting the words. "Beyond everything we know." Rhaegar shut his eyes at the tremor in her voice. When he opened them, resolve had hardened. "I will see you safe aboard a Braavosi galley at first light." He did not say that first light was heartbeats away. Torches guttered along the stair as they descended the tower of the Sea Dragon. Sir Arthur Dane waited in the yard with a lean gray horse for the lady, a chestnut mare for the king's son's wet nurse, and 2 pack mules laden with smoother lives they might never reclaim. Dane's dawn gleamed frost-pale beneath its wolfskin sheath. Moonstone in the pommel caught the torchlight, casting ripples of milk-white fire. He saluted without words, for vows spoken too loudly echoed. A salted wind dragged at Lyanna's braid. Loose strands wickered about her face like restless foals. "You will ride a shadow," Dane said, voice a hush of steel, "and shadow cannot be caught." They left Dragonstone through the postern, when the stars were paling. Behind them the fortress crouched, half ruin, half stronghold, its gargoyles winged against the black. The path curled downward past jagged ribs of basalt. Before them stretched a ribbon of sand and the sea's eternal breath. Rhaegar rode ahead, cloak streaming, silver-gold hair, unbound. Lyanna matched his pace. Baby John swaddled to her chest. Beneath a woolen shawl dyed the brown of river mud, dull as anonymity. No dragon banners, no silver steeds, only the hush of hooves in cold sand. At the water's edge, a skiff waited under the guard of 2 Braavosi oarsmen, who had been paid in rubies and silence. The larger vessel, a cog named the Dove of Lorath, loomed ghost-like beyond a veil of mist. The tide slithered around Lyanna's boots as she stepped into the skiff. Rhaegar steadied her, lingering in the contact as though imprinting memory through touch. "His name," Lyanna breathed, "is Jon. Promise me, Rhaegar. In Qarth, or wherever fate strands us, no other name." Rhaegar's lips parted in something between oath and surrender. "Jon," he echoed, tasting the northern syllable. "Snow upon the stepstones, snow upon desert sands, snow that does not melt." The oars dipped, dark blades slicing the mirror sea. The skiff glided, leaving only widening rings to mark its passage. Rhaegar stood on the shore until mist swallowed mast and sail and hope alike. Dawn broke over the narrow sea as the Dove unfurled pale canvas, and the world became a quilt of gilt and gray. Lyanna leaned against the railing, knuckles numb in the salt wind, eyes locked on the shrinking bruise of Dragonstone on the horizon. Beneath the deck, the wet nurse hummed an old lullaby, isle-born and lonely. Above, gulls squabbled, white sides against a coin-bright sky. Yet the Prince of Dragonstone slept, cheek pillowed on Lyanna's heartbeat, unaware that each league carried him farther from both throne and cradle. Lyanna traced patterns on the deck with shadowed fingertips, weaving memories that refused unraveling. Blue roses wilting in dark water, a tourney at Harrenhal, a crown of winter flowers, vows whispered and broken in the same breath. The captain, Aenor of Lorath, approached with careful politeness, wide-brimmed hat doffed. His beard smelled of cloves and oranges, rarities traded beyond the summer isles. "Lady," he said, though they had agreed on no titles, "the tide favors us. We make Myr in 6 days, Pentos soon after, then follow the rum road to Lys. From there eastward in company of a summer isle carrot." Lyanna nodded, absorbing shape and distance she scarcely understood. The sea was a map drawn in shifting ink. Every wave erased the line behind. "How far is Qarth, truly?" she ventured. Aenor's brow furrowed under salt-bleached hair. "Farther than any lover's promise," he replied, "but nearer than death, my lady. You'll know it when you see jade and ivory gates where desert meets sea." Then, when night fell, it came like velvet, thick with unsung stars. Lanterns bobbed, amber motes in a black well, and the crew's footsteps drummed a patient rhythm as the ship rolled eastward. Lyanna found herself measuring the sway of deck planks with the weight of her thoughts. In Winterfell she had danced in snowdrifts under a moonless sky. In Dragonstone she had dreamed of dragon songs. Now the deck growled beneath her boots, and she understood none of those lands would ever feel the same beneath her feet again. She whispered stories to Jon when the wind howled. A direwolf with wings, a dragon who donned a wolfskin cloak, beasts too strange for any maester's tome. And the child cooed, reaching pudgy fingers toward her voice. Each smile cut her deeper than swords could. Off Myr, the sea turned green as old glass. Traders' lanterns dotted the horizon, swaying like jewel-bright fish. The Dove skirted the harbor under a false flag, for Bravos owed little love to the free cities it rivaled. Lyanna watched spires of marble and copper fade into dawn mist, felt the hush of a place glimpsed but never touched. Gold spent like water concealed them, yet gold ran dry. 6 iron bank letters of credit lay hidden in a velvet pouch among baby swaddles, gifts from Rhaegar, or chains, depending on which side of waking she occupied. In Pentos, they anchored only long enough to take on brackish water and figs and whispers. Dockside hawkers shouted news. Lord Tywin had taken the field. Storm's End was under siege. Prince Viserys and Princess Aelia still barred within Maegor's holdfast. Lyanna pressed deeper into her cloak, fearing recognition even in cities that could not name her. She glimpsed sellswards swaggering in half-armor, whores in satin masks, red priests with tongues aflame in prayer to a stranger god. Pentos reeked of spice and despair and possibility. At dusk, the Dove slipped away, its wake gleaming red under a wine-dark sun. A storm found them 2 days beyond the disputed lands. Clouds gathered like bruises. The sea reared, roaring its ancient fury. The mast groaned, rigging shrieked. Lightning flayed the sky in white lashes. Lyanna lashed herself to the mainmast, one arm around Jon, body forming the small bulwark she could. Rain slashed sideways. Aenor shouted orders drowned by thunder. Somewhere a yard snapped, canvas ripped free, the white flag of surrender to the storm god that sailors curse but never name. Through it all, Jon slept, lulled by the thunder's cradle, and Lyanna felt awe and terror fuse into a single note. "This is my son, the storm-born wolf," she promised then, half mad with salt water, that no gale would break them. Dawn after the storm was so clear it made her weep. The sea lay polished, a tarnished mirror. Dead gulls floated like plucked flowers. Sailors swabbed boards in silence, each man cataloging losses. A friend, a spar, a tooth. The Dove limped toward Lys on patched sail and prayer. When they reached the pleasure isle, painted ships, perfumed air, Aenor paid for repairs with 3 rubies from Rhaegar's purse. Lyanna walked the Lysine docks. Jon balanced on her hip and watched courtesans in their peacock finery flutter fan wings at passing captains. Here, seduction was trade, and trade the only law. She bought a turquoise bead to thread in Jon's swaddle cord, a small charm against the next storm. She wrote no letters. Words could be stolen. Only silence traveled safely. Lists receded. The jade gates beckoned. The dove took on fresh companions. A summer isle carrack called Brightfeather, and a squat Qarthine dhow, the moon's mercy. The convoy cut south of Valyria's smoking ruins, giving that cursed coast a berth as wide as superstition demanded. Nights there tasted of brimstone. The sea hissed over fissures where fire licked black waves. Lyanna stood at the rail, Jon slung against her chest, and saw the red flush of flame beneath the water. She thought of dragonfire and birthrights turned to ash. A sailor crossed himself, whispering a prayer to the drowned god of the Iron Isles, and she wondered which god, if any, charted their course. Weeks passed in the lazy meter of waves against Hull. Jon's first smile came beneath a sliver moon. His first laugh, in open sea where no witness would bind it in parchment. Lyanna's heart folded around each milestone like petals secreting fragrance. She hummed northern ballads. The Bear and the Maiden Fair, the last of the giants, songs her brothers bellowed after too much ale. The crew picked up refrains, voices weaving strange harmonies with stepstone shanties. Music, she found, belonged to no kingdom. It strode borders in bare feet, defiant. They reached the Basilisk Isles, jungle-clad and buzzing with unseen wings. Here pirates thrived on plague and plunder. Brightfeather's captain released a flight of scarlet macaws. Good omen, he declared, though omens rarely appeased men with curved swords and black sails. But the pirates never came. Some nights the moon showed 3 faces, others none. The convoy slid eastward beneath constellations no maester had named. At last, the Jade Sea spread before them, green and mysterious. Monstrous fish breached at dawn, their scales hammered bronze in sunrise. Whalers from far Ashai bobbed on distant swells, lanterns glowing like embers in a great dark hearth. The wind shifted, hot and dry, and the perfume of cinnamon and ghostgrass replaced brine. Aenor unfurled a silk pennon inked with the sign of the elephant and the tower. Qarth's mercantile crest, and the crew cheered. Lyanna felt the cheer like an echo within an echo. Each league brought safety and strangeness in equal measure. The red waste announced itself hours before sight. Dust blew across the deck, settling on tongues like rust. The horizon gained a reed gold smudge that resolved into dunes and rock canyons, carving the land like hollowed bone. Water barrels were unlashed. The crew wetted cloth for their mouths. Qarth, they said, rose beyond that scoured expanse, a jewel behind a dragon's maw. Lyanna's boots crunched on sand that should not have touched a seaborne deck. She tasted it, metallic, old as stories. Jon fussed, unused to heat. She stripped him to linen and fanned his flushed skin with her hand, whispering promises of cooler nights and moonlit gardens. In those moments, she believed her own tales, that Qarth would welcome them, that Rhaegar's war would burn out like a spent brand, that one day she would walk a road home. Yet every gust carried rumors. King's Landing's gates barred, River Run under siege, the usurper marching. Lyanna kept those rumors behind her teeth, feeding Jon only lullabies. The ships anchored off the Wraithstone, a jagged outcrop marking safe approach to the merchant harbor. From the deck, Lyanna glimpsed pale walls far inland, luminous even through the haze. 3 walls, some swore, each higher than the last, adorned with carvings of prowling beasts and winged men. Aenor arranged for desert guides, copper-skinned men in ivory robes, faces veiled save for kohl-rimmed eyes. Their camels bore tasseled saddles, their voices soft as dune winds. Bargaining took a day, trust longer. But gold coins spoke a language older than suspicion. They set out at dawn. The desert swallowed sound. Sand chafed beneath Lyanna's veil. Heat hammered the horizon into mirage. Camels padded forward, indifferent. Jon dozed in a cradle strapped before her saddle, rocked by the beast's rolling gait. The guides led in silence, but their shadows stretched long and thin, dancing with specters of memory. Ned's laugh, Benjen's wild grin, Winterfell's crackling hearth. Lyanna bit her lip until she tasted iron. She feared forgetting those beloved ghosts more than dying among strangers. At night, The desert bloomed under starlight. Scorpions scuttled, phosphorescent, and distant dunes sang, when wind combed their crests. Around a low fire, the guide called Rajin told tales, in a tongue of clicks and sighs, half translated by a fellow caravaner, of traders lost to glass tunnels beneath the sand, of shadowbinders who walked the night with lanterns of captured moons. Lyanna told none in return. Stories were valuables, and she hoarded hers like rubies. Their second dawn in the Red Waste found Jon restless. He squirmed and wailed, face red, small fists pounding the indifferent air. Lyanna soaked cloth in dwindling water, pressing it to his brow. Rajin watched, dark eyes unreadable. At midday they came upon a ring-shaped oasis, water clear as polished jade, reeds arching like green spears. Lyanna bathed Jon there, letting cool ripples soothe his cries. She bathed herself after, discarding dust and doubt alike. When they mounted again, the child slept, lips curved, as though dreaming of winter snows he'd never touched. Near dusk, they crested a dune and saw Qarth unveiled, white walls gleaming like moons against the dying sun, gates studded with copper, colossal statues guarding each approach. The winged lion, the warlock king, the priestess of spears. Lyanna halted, swallowed by wonder. The city shimmered, impossibly delicate, a mirage rendered solid. Yet between wonder and dread lay only a breath. She shifted Jon's weight, drew her veil closer, and nudged her camel forward. Rajin led them to the Gate of Whispers, smallest of the city's mouths. The guards wore armor of lacquered bone, their helms curved like dragon jaws. Behind them, silk-robed scribes recorded arrivals on scrolls, scented with saffron. Rajin presented a bronze medallion stamped with twin elephants, the token of a Qarthine merchant prince purchased by Rhaegar's gold. The guards conferred in murmurs that drifted away on the wind. Finally, one bowed and stepped aside. The gate groaned, widening to reveal an avenue of lapis tiles and fountains shaped like coiled dragons spitting jasmina-scented water. Lyanna's first breath of Qarth tasted sweet and cold, as if the city's stones bled perfume. Dolmens rose on either side, their walls mosaicked with turquoise and pearl. Qarth had been carved, not built, by artisans who understood both stone and dream. Caravans drifted like painted barges along the avenue. Slave girls with silver collars dangled parasols trimmed in peacock feathers above merchants reclining on palanquins. All eyes slid over the dusty northern woman on a camel, her swaddled infant, her single guard. They reached the merchant prince's house at twilight. High walls veiled the courtyard. Gates of hammered bronze bore the sigil of intertwined serpents. Servants in ivory linen bowed low, bidding them dismount. Lyanna's legs trembled when her boots touched marble. Rajin spoke quickly in the Qarthine tongue. Coins changed hands. A matron with silver fingertips, rings stacked to her knuckles, approached Lyanna, gaze resting on the child. "You will have rooms in the women's quarter," she said in thickly accented common. "Your son will receive goat's milk and honey water. The prince expects your gratitude expressed in silence." Lyanna inclined her head. Gratitude was a blade, wielded poorly, and it cut the wrong throat. She followed through arches where night-blooming flowers perfumed the air, through corridors lit by floating lanterns that drifted on unseen currents. At last a chamber opened, its windows curtained with gauze, its floor tiled with crescent moons. A crib of carved teak awaited Jon, draped in gauze fine as spider silk. Lyanna laid him down, stroking his cheek. He sighed, fingers closing around a lock of her hair. She sat beside him until his breathing steadied, then lay upon a silk-strewn divan. Only when the lanterns dimmed to embers did she allow the tears she had hoarded since Dragonstone. They slid silent down her cheeks, a litany of what could not be spoken. Days merged into a rhythm of quiet hazard. Servants brought dates, pomegranates, thin breads dusted with sugar, goat's milk warmed with cardamom for Jon. Lyanna learned the house's pulse, when the fountains were fed, when the mosaic courtyard flooded with twilight drums, when the merchant prince passed in rustling robes smelling of myrrh. He never spoke to her, yet she felt his gaze, weighing possibility. In Qarth, Every guest was coin or cage. Lyanna resolved to be neither. She spent mornings in the shaded garden where scarlet lotus floated on turquoise pools. Jon kicked and gurgled atop a woven mat, sunlight dappling his belly. Sometimes copper-skinned servant girls paused to coo. Others dropped lotus petals near him, a superstition, or perhaps a kindness. Lyanna offered shy smiles, careful not to mistake courtesy for friendship. In this city of masked courtesies, even smiles were veils. News reached her in fragments, like shattered glass glinting from the street below. King's Landing taken. The Mad King dead. Lord Stark executed. Rhaegar fallen on the trident. She heard the names in many tongues. Aerys, Robert, Ned, each syllable a pebble dropped in her gut. The day she learned Rhaegar had died beneath Robert's hammer blow, she did not weep. She carried Jon to the garden's farthest corner, sat beneath a pale lilac tree, and sang the lullaby of the north, gentle as snowfall. Her voice cracked on the final verse. Jon stared at her with solemn violet-gray eyes. His father's eyes, her eyes, until her voice found strength again. Months slipped by, seasons measured in the thickening of Jon's limbs, the steadiness of his gaze. Lyanna spoke to him of Winterfell's godswood, of the quiet tremor of weirwood leaves, of the cold scent of iron when the snows came heavy. She told him of Rhaegar's songs, of a harp twined with silver strings, of grief carved into melody. She did not speak of war or crowns. Those truths could wait until he was old enough to shoulder them. One evening, as dusk bled amethyst across Qarth, the merchant prince summoned her. Servants led Lyanna through winding halls to a chamber walled in mirrors. The prince reclined on a cushion of purple silk, face veiled in golden mesh. Candles burned in crystal bowls, their reflections multiplied until the room seemed an ocean of flame. He gestured, a languid flick of jeweled fingers. "Lady," he said in flawless common, "do you know why your son is precious?" Lyanna met the mirrored eyes, her own reflection scattered around her like broken selves. "He is a child," she answered. "All children are precious." The prince laughed, a sound like coins spilling. "In Qarth, value is measured in rarity. A boy with eyes of dusk and dawn is treasure. But that is not why I shelter you." He paused, letting curiosity sharpen the air. "I shelter you because the world will soon burn again, and I prefer my guests to owe me when the fires rise." Lyanna's pulse steadied though fear clawed her ribs. "We owe you nothing, my lord," she replied. "Your hospitality was purchased in advance." She tapped a pouch at her hip, the last of Rhaegar's coin. The prince's smile did not falter. "Gold pays for bread and blankets," he said. "Debt buys loyalty." He lifted a goblet. Dark wine caught the candle fire. "One day, perhaps, I will ask your son to remember who kept him alive." His gaze lingered on her stomach, flat as hunger. "Perhaps sooner than you expect." Lyanna felt cold despite the heat. She bowed and left without permission. If that slight cost her future comfort, comfort was a price quickly foregone. She returned to her chamber, heart hammering like a caged bird. Jon slept, thumb tucked beside soft lips. Lyanna packed what little she owned. 2 linen shifts, a silver wolf's head brooch, a dagger Arthur Dayne had pressed upon her before he rode north to die. She wrapped Jon in a sling, pressed a kiss to his brow, and slipped into the corridor's hush. Shadows stretched long. Nightingales trilled in the courtyard. She avoided lantern pools, footsteps silent. At the servants' gate she paused, breath shallow, and stepped into the Qarthian night. The city after dusk was a different kingdom. Silky-clad revelers drifted between wine palaces, masked warlocks whispered under moonless archways, and perfumed assassins stalked marble bridges. Lyanna kept to alleyways where only beggars noted her passing, and beggars kept their silence for fear of losing tongues. She found a spice market closing its stalls. She traded her brooch for a slouch hat and rough-spun cloak dyed indigo. With hood drawn she became no one, a shadow among 1,000. At dawn she reached the docks, where junks and dhows and towering 9-masted treasure ships crowded like teeth. She sought the smallest schooner, a battered vessel crewed by summer islanders with kind eyes. The captain, A thick-thighed woman named Kessie listened as Lyanna spun her tale, a widow seeking passage to Ashai to escape creditors. Lie within lie, yet not entirely false. Ashai lay at the world's edge, a land of demons and mourning. Perhaps there she could vanish beyond even Robert's reach. Kessie pondered, chewing nut leaf, then shrugged. Ashai-bound we are. 3 dragons in silver coin buys passage, 5 buys silence. Lyanna paid 6 dau. In Qarth, overpayment was armor. That evening Lyanna stood at the schooner's stern. Jon nestled in her arms and watched Qarth shrink into ivory haze. The wind snapped the canvas. Gulls cried overhead, blind to kingdoms. Jon opened his eyes, irises shifting as light caught them. Not quite Targaryen violet, not wholly stark gray, but a twilight shade born of both. Lyanna traced the curve of his cheek, and the moment held, fragile as blown glass. "You will be safe," she promised, voice steady as any vow she had ever sworn. "You will be free." She did not know if the sea would honor that vow, or the shadowed city that lay beyond its horizon. But vows shaped the future, or so the bards claimed. The schooner sailed east, where sunrise painted a road of molten gold upon the water. Behind them, Qarth's gates closed, swallowing secrets and debts alike. Ahead, the world unspooled, vast and unmapped, waiting for a boy who belonged to no throne, forged of snow and dragon fire, cradled by a wolf mother who had already outrun one destiny and would outrun 1,000 more before she was done. And as dawn's first light brushed the sea, Lyanna Stark tightened her hold on Jon Snow, breathed the salt sweet air, and stepped into the story she would write for him, line by stubborn line, upon the blank scroll of the world. And moon after moon slid across the sky as the Summer Island schooner rode the Jade Sea, its lateen sails stained ochre by brine and wind-whipped dust. The vessel's planks creaked like old bones settling, yet Kessie the captain swore each groan was a blessing from the sea gods. Wood alive enough to complain was wood unwilling to drown. Lyanna learned to trust those creaks, to count the delicate seconds between wave and reply, until the ship's voice became a dialect she half understood. She rose with the dawn bells, feeding Jon mashed dates and goat's milk, then worked alongside the crew, coiling hemp lines, mending torn netting, scrubbing decks slick with fish oil. Labor flattened class and title. On the high seas, a queen who cannot haul a line is a weight best thrown overboard. Calluses formed on her palms, new skin thick as her resolve. Jon thrived beneath the naked sun. His downy hair lightened to the silver of dawn clouds. His laughter skimmed across the water like darting terns. Sailors painted crude runes on his cheeks in palm ash, charms against sea fever. Lyanna let them, believing in every superstition now that her son was the stake. At night, when ship lanterns burned low, she told stories of an animal-headed king who ruled a city beneath the waves, and Jon babbled responses as though fluent in the language of myths. A fortnight east of Mantares, the schooner sighted a blood-red comet tearing across the vault of stars. Its tail spanned half the heavens, bright enough to turn the deckboards ruddy. Kessie ordered every crewman to stand barefoot on the foredeck, offerings of rum and coconut husk raised high. A right to court the comet's favor. Lyanna held Jon aloft, the boy's tiny hands waving at the slash of fire, and felt the hush of augury settle over the sea. Later, alone in her hammock, she remembered Targaryen prophecy whispered behind Dragonstone's windy ramparts, that a red star would bleed when the dragon's heir was born. She pressed her lips to Jon's crown, where the comet's glow still lingered, and wondered whether fate followed them like a hound on scent. The Jade Sea widened to impossible calm, its mirrored surface broken only by drifting islands of weed and the jagged fins of ghost-white sharks. Every breath tasted of salt and secrets. Then, on a day when the horizon appeared too clear, a mist rose without warning, swallowing color and sound. The schooner's bell tolled 3 times, danger unwitnessed. Figures emerged from the fog. Tall ships of tarnished bronze, sails woven of black silk that drank the light. Their prows bore serpents with gemstone eyes, and their decks bristled with soldiers in segmented armor, faces masked in gold. Qarth had warned of them. Pirates out of Yeti, exiles from the 3,000 towers, traitors in flesh and sorrow. Kessie barked orders. Oars unfurled from the schooner's hull, dipping like iron ribs into the glassy sea. Drummers hammered frantic cadence as the crew bent to the sweeps. Lyanna secured Jon in a sling across her chest and helped arm sailors with spears levered from hidden racks. Fog muffled every shout, every splash, until even her heartbeat sounded distant. The first bolt clanged off the rail, a hook-tipped harpoon trailing chain links thick as a man's thumb. A second bolt punched through canvas, tearing a sail into limp ribbons. The pirate flagship loomed alongside, its deck a gallery of gold-masked faces, eyes blank as polished jade. Grappling hooks soared, teeth burying in the schooner's gunwale. Wood groaned. Men cursed. Lyanna tasted blood where she bit her lip to keep from screaming. The pirate captain vaulted across the gap in a swirl of black silk. Sword curved like a crescent moon. Kessie met her halfway, machete clashing against polished steel. Rain of sparks hissed before vanishing into the fog. Battle erupted. Oars splintered, masts cracked, the schooner listing beneath sudden weight. Lyanna ducked a sweeping blade, slashed with a marlinspike she found wedged beneath coils of rope. Caught flesh. Jon wailed at her chest, shrill as the bosun's pipe. A gold-masked warrior lunged. She sidestepped, drove the spike through his thigh, wrenched, felt resistance give. Blood sizzled on hot deck boards. Kessie was everywhere, her laughter sharp as gull cries, machete painting arcs of crimson. She severed the pirate captain's ear, kicked him into the sea where shadows waited. The remaining raiders faltered, sudden fear clouding mask slits. A torch flared. Lyanna did not see who flung it, and the pirate's main sail bloomed with hungry fire. Flames licked upward, devouring silk, shedding embers that hissed into the water. Grappling chains clangorously unhooked. The bronze ship recoiled, half shrouded in smoke, retreated into fog like a wounded beast. Silence clung to the schooner once more, punctuated by groans of injured wood and men alike. Lyanna bent over a sailor's torn side, stuffing linen into a wound that pulsed scarlet. She counted breaths, clutched trembling hands, whispered the old northern prayer Mother used when Bran scraped knees on Winterfell's stone. Only when the man slipped into uneasy sleep did she realize Jon had ceased crying. She pressed her ear to his chest. Heartbeat sure, steady, unafraid. She kissed the pulse in his throat, promising again that no steel would find him while she drew breath. Sun birthed itself from the fog next dawn, revealing the schooner's scars, splintered railings, a shredded topsail, blood drying to brown crusts. Kessie limped the length of her deck, hand on Lyanna's shoulder. "Stay below for now," she urged. "I've seen mothers go brittle as salt after a fight. Let others mend." Lyanna wanted to protest, to haul lines until her arms shook, but she obeyed. Below deck smelled of oil and damp rope, a scent oddly comforting. Jon slept in a hammock rigged from spare sailcloth, swaying with the swell. Lyanna curled beside him, exhaustion finally outweighing vigilance, and drifted into a dream of wolves running over waves. 2 weeks later, the schooner limped into the shadow of Nefer, where the Pearl River disgorged jade water into the sea. Towers of colored glass rose against a pewter sky, bridges latticed like spiderwebs between spires. Markets spilled onto floating docks, their canopies stitched from dragonfly wings and gauze. Kessie traded half her remaining cargo for cedar planks, silk line, and a half-dozen casks of Iraq. Lyanna disembarked only once, seeking a healer for a sailor whose wound had festered. She paid with her mother's silver comb, a relic she'd carried since Winterfell. In exchange, the healer, a stooped man with milky eyes, handed her a jar of green salve and a vial of black poppy. "For pain," he rasped, "either blessing or curse." They sailed upriver, following loops where water gleamed like burnished shield metal. Cranes with scarlet plumes stalked reeds, spearing golden fish. Jon reached chubby hands toward them, fascinated. Lyanna marveled that such beauty still existed in a world at war. Nights they anchored beside orchards where lantern beetles drifted like embers. Sailors filled nets with sweetmeat crabs and sang ballads of home isles lost to time. Lyanna added her northern alto to their harmonies, voice threading through languages she barely knew. The Pearl River narrowed, current quickening, until the schooner could go no farther. Villagers met them with wary curiosity, offering bowls of snake soup and bundles of lotus root in trade for glass beads. Here Kessie secured mules for the overland crossing to Ashai, hiring a guide named Lyanna. Tall, skin the golden hue of stained parchment, hair bound in a knot secured by an obsidian pin. Lyanna spoke calm and slow but precise, and carried a staff tipped with bone. The Shadowlands test all hearts, he warned while they loaded packs. Some break, some harden. None return unchanged. They set out at dawn. The path wound through bamboo forests, alive with whispering leaves, then climbed into hills where air grew pine-sharp and thin. John rode in a wicker basket strapped to Lyanna's chest, wide eyes tracking every flutter of birds. The company numbered 15, Kessie, Lyanna, 6 of the schooner's crew, 8 mules bearing cloth, spices, and barrels of lantern oil, currency in Ashai, where sun was a rumor. Days passed in rhythmic hoofbeats. At night, they camped by hot springs that steamed under a fire moon. Lyanna drew maps in the sand, marking passes avoided by shadowbinders, wells poisoned by dragonglass splinters. He spoke of night markets, where blood could purchase forgotten names, and of the Saffron Strait, green as venom and twice as deadly, leading to the Port of Ashes beyond. On the 7th day, mountains blotted the horizon, serrated black silhouettes puncturing the gray sky. The locals called them the Mother's Teeth. Snow mantled their peaks despite the summer heat. John giggled at flakes that drifted like lost dreams upon the breeze. Lyanna held out her palm, catching a crystal, marveling at cold so far from any north. She remembered Winterfell's vaulting sky, her brothers flinging themselves into drifts, her own racing heart the day she and Ned rode through silent white woods. Memory pricked tears she blinked away before they froze on lashes. The path entered a gorge where stone walls leaked rust-colored water. Echoes distorted every sound until voices seemed to chase themselves. There the first signs of the Shadowlands appeared, trees growing leafless, bark stretched taut over twisted limbs, birds with translucent feathers, pools where water rippled though no wind stirred. The mules balked. Lyanna scattered powdered jade across the trail, chanting. The travelers stepped carefully, each footfall a vow to keep moving. That night, the moon rose orange, haloed by tendrils of violet light. A shriek rang across the valley, neither beast nor man. Sailors glanced sidelong at Lyanna's campfire, hands straying to knives. She sang softly to John, ignoring the hush of dread. Sleep came fitfully, interrupted by dreams of a weirwood tree sprouting black leaves, its face turned away, weeping pitch instead of sap. At dawn they found footprints circling the camp, cloven, too large for goat or mule. No one spoke of them. They packed quickly and moved. The air turned metallic, tasting of thunderstorms unshed. John fussed, then fell into uneasy doze. Lyanna ran fingers through his hair until her nails trembled. She was beginning to understand Lyanna's warning. The land itself was a slow-drinking poison. On the 12th day, they crested a ridge and saw the Saffron Strait glimmering far below, a serpent of iridescent green winding toward the sea. Beyond its far bank crouched Ashai, a lattice of shadowy spires threaded by canals of black water. No flags flew, no smoke rose from hearths. The city seemed poised between existence and memory, as though it might vanish if one blinked too slowly. Even Kessie, bold as hurricane, swallowed hard. The road descended in switchbacks so narrow mules scraped their packs against stone. At the valley floor, mist clung to dune grass, veiling hidden hollows that stank of brimstone. They reached a ferry landing where boats carved from pale wood rocked gently. Ferrymen in lacquer masks waited silent. Lyanna spoke to them in the tongue of Ashai. Coins exchanged hands, black iron stamped with a spiral sigil, and the travelers boarded a boat that smelt of wet tombs. Oars dipped, cutting water thick as oil. The current bore them beneath an arch of fused bone. Dragon, whale, perhaps something older, into a canal flanked by basalt quays. Buildings rose like broken teeth, windows blind, doors sealed by bands of lead. Yet torches burned within, casting silhouettes that moved with uncertain grace. The ferry slid beneath a bridge, where crimson lanterns swayed. Hooded figures watched from parapets, their silence heavier than pronouncement. Lyanna felt eyes crawl over her skin. She clutched Jon, whose gaze tracked every wavering light, unafraid. In the boy's face she found courage. The boat berthed at a dock before a long house of black cedar. A woman awaited them, skin so pale it seemed fashioned from moonlight. She wore a mask of polished obsidian, lips carved in a faint smile. "I am Qarth," she said in a voice that rustled like parchment. "You seek shelter." Lyanna bowed. Kessie bowed lower. Lyanna inclined her head, determined not to betray fear. Qarth's gaze settled on Jon. "The child carries storms in his blood," she mused, tone neither praise nor condemnation. "Ashai's halls are wide enough to house such tempests. For a price." Lyanna tasted iron again but forced calm. "Name it." Qarth lifted a hand. Fireflies drifted from her sleeve, or perhaps sparks. "Only vigilance," she replied. "In Ashai, mothers must guard dreams more fiercely than blades." Qarth led them through corridors lit by blue glass lanterns. Runes crawled across the stone like living ink, rearranging as they passed, secrets that refused to be learned. Their chamber overlooked a canal shimmering with bioluminescent algae, casting soft turquoise radiance across carved pillars. Jon reached toward the light and cooed. Lyanna allowed herself a sliver of hope. Perhaps this strange city would cradle them long enough to grow new roots. Weeks folded into months measured by Jon's milestones. First steps along a balcony tiled with obsidian chips. First words echoing beneath vaulted ceilings. Mama, star, snow. Lyanna learned the markets where shadow binders bartered bottled whispers for powdered moonstone. She learned to navigate alleys where walls wept tar at noon. She traded Winterfell songs for jars of preserved lizard pear, a delicacy Jon adored. Kessie left with her crew, promising to return in a year's tide. Lyanna remained, becoming a quiet sentinel who watched Jon with eyes both sorrowful and questioning. Qarth appeared often, always without footfall. She spoke in riddles. "The lion cradles a broken crown. Ash is the mirror of flame. In the father's song lies the echo of ruin." Lyanna gathered these shards, unsure if they formed prophecy or warning. One evening, Qarth laid a hand on Jon's brow. "There is glass in his bones," she whispered. "One day, it will sing." Lyanna did not sleep that night, hearing the imagined chime of fragile crystal beneath her son's skin. News trickled even here. Whispers of Robert Baratheon crowned, of the Iron Throne's debts mounting, of dragons unborn and kingdoms uneasy in their peace. Qarth offered glimpses in obsidian bowls filled with still water. Robert's wine-flushed face, Cersei Lannister's cold smile, a boy with black hair and blue eyes swinging a practiced sword in Winterfell's yard. Bran grown taller. Lyanna wept at the sight of her brother's children thriving under foreign skies of her remembrance. She watched Ned pacing ramparts, face lined with sorrow, and imagined the questions haunting him. She could send no word. Ned believed her dead, and safer so. Winter came to Ashai not with snow but with silence. Songs left taverns. Even canal water froze beneath rims of black ice. Jon grew tall, his cheeks losing baby fat, eyes sharpening like the edge of dawn. He practiced with a wooden sword, Lyanna carved, imitating sailors' drills. Lyanna corrected his stance, recalling Benjen's patient lessons with tourney staves. She forbade shadow magics, but magic seeped from every crack in Ashai. Jon dreamed of dragons with wolf heads, of a tower made of singing ice. He woke speaking words not in any tongue Lyanna knew. Qarth listened, head tilted, and murmured, "The world remembers itself through children." On Jon's 6th name day, Lyanna baked him a honey cake, shaped like a direwolf. Though honey was dear, they picnicked on a terrace overlooking the Ash River where it met the sea, water and sky indistinguishable. Jon asked if he had a father. Lyanna watched clouds spool violet across fading sun before she answered. "He was a prince who loved letters more than swords," she said. "He played songs that made even stones cry." Jon absorbed this, eyes shining. Will I meet him? She swallowed glass. One day, in tales. Jon nodded, accepting truth disguised as story. He offered her the cake's sugared ear, gesture solemn as a vow. Years unfurled. Jon learned the staff from Lyanna, the bow from a masked shadow archer who demanded only polished sea glass for lessons. He read tomes, scavenged from Ashai's blackstone libraries, tracing glyphs that shimmered under touch. Lyanna kept pace, guarding him from knowledge too sharp, yet he drank deeply of the world's mysteries. His spirit carried north bite and dragonfire's flicker, tempest and calm braided. When Jon reached 10 years, Qarth summoned Lyanna to a chamber whose floor was a single slab of obsidian, polished to mirror darkness. In its surface, Lyanna saw skies on fire, armies of dead beneath banners of cracked ice, a dragon falling in crimson snow. Qarth said, "Children of storm cannot hide from storm forever. The tide returns." She offered a stone egg shot through with veins of silver and blue, a promise kept in dream. Lyanna felt warmth pulse through the shell. She thought of dragon eggs rumored gifted at Dorne weddings, of fire that births fire. Qarth's masked face, reflected twin in the obsidian. When the wolf meets the crow beneath a bleeding star, she intoned. Break the shell. Lyanna clutched the egg close, its weight immense. That night, she told Jon of Westeros, of Winterfell's halls, of the wall gleaming under starlight, of honor and folly and home. Jon listened until dawn's first light seeped dull through ash-loaded clouds. He did not speak until she finished. "I want to see snow," he said plainly. Lyanna's heart cracked like lake ice. She had prepared for this chord to strike, still it shook her bones. "Then we will," she promised. "But the road is long." Jon smiled, winter already shining in his eyes. They prepared quietly. Kessie returned as vowed, with a new ship, sleeker, armed with scorpions and bronze-banded rams. She laughed at Jon's height, called him Seawolf, swore him a berth if ever he chased horizons. Lyanna traded spices, relics, even the house Qarth had lent, amassing coin. Lyanna agreed to guide them west, through Valyria's smoking sea in safer lattices known only to shadow guides, across the disputed lands, by river to Volantis. From there, passage could be found for coin and nerve. Qarth gifted Jon a cloak woven of dusk blue silk, light as breath, strong as oaths. "For when shadows chase sun," she said. Jon bowed deeply, northern courtesy blended with Ashai grace. They left at dawn, mules laden, hearts taut. Ashai's gates closed behind them with a sigh akin to pages turning. Travel west felt like sailing back through his own story's footprints. Jon marveled at forests of burning leaf, at stretched horizons barren and beautiful. Lyanna watched him gather fragments she had once called world, and understand them new. In the Basilisk Isles they bartered safe passage through pirate waters by trading a single feather from a yellow-green parrot, rare enough to buy allegiance. In Lys, they lodged at a house of singers. Jon learned ballads of the bleeding years, voice clear, grief sweet. In Tyrosh, he bested a sellsword at staff spar, collecting cheers, and a bruise purpling his cheek. Lyanna treated it with time's salve, smiling secret pride. They reached Volantis when the summer of Jon's 11th year waned. The black wall loomed, ancient as broken promises. Markets teemed with elephant-sigilled slaves and red priests preaching savior and flame. Lyanna sought a brave Ozi smuggler known to carry fugitives across the narrow sea under false names. Gold changed hands. The smuggler, a wiry man called Tomorrow, examined Jon's eyes, a beat too long, but accepted the coin. "We sail on the morrow's tide, winds willing." Lyanna nodded, relief and dread interlaced. That night, they walked the long bridge, lamps glimmering like fallen stars. Jon paused at rail's edge, watching the Royne's black water churn around piers. "Do you fear going home?" he asked. Lyanna considered. "Home," she said slowly, "is part memory, part hope. The fear lies in which part has changed more." Jon leaned against her side. "I will stand with you," he promised. She ruffled his hair. "And I with you." The voyage across the narrow sea tested nerve more than skill. Storms chased them. Food spoiled. Crew whispered of a kraken shadowing their keel. Jon learned knots, steered by starlight, earned sailors' respect. When a mast cracked in gale, he climbed rigging slick with rain to lash it, muscles quaking yet unyielding. Lyanna watched, pride tempered by terror, trusting the wind to keep him. On clear nights, they shared stories of what awaited. Of Ned's honor, of Winterfell's wolfswood, of white ravens that flew when seasons changed. They made landfall at salt pans, charred from raiders. Smoke still thorned the sky. Tomorrow would go no farther. Gold was refunded in part, the rest claimed by danger. Lyanna and Jon bought 2 sturdy horses. Supplies. A map, inked by trembling hand. They rode north along the King's Road under autumn leaves, bleeding orange and gold. News passed in roadside inns. King Robert hunted in the Kingswood. Eddard Stark served as hand. Whispers of bastards with black hair and blue eyes. Lyanna listened, heart pounding to a drum of panic and possibility. Jon listened too, storing names like Flint's. Near the Ruby Ford they found a sept in ruins, its statues toppled. Jon knelt among shattered faces, tracing moss-grown features. So many gods, he mused. Do they quarrel like men? Lyanna laughed softly. If they do, let's hope they watch over us better than we watch over them. They camped under high pines, sharing acorn bread and dried figs. Moonlight silvering Jon's cloak. Pada. Wolves howled. Jon answered, voice low and fearless, a sound that thrilled Lyanna's marrow with memory. They crossed the neck on causeway roads built of ancient stones, slick with lichen. Fog hovered knee-deep. Frog-eaters whistled from reed boats, guiding travelers for copper coin. One night, while Lyanna brewed pine needle tea, a small figure approached. A girl of perhaps 12, hair wild, eyes bright as wet moss. Your Crannog folk? She asked Jon. He shook his head. Just passing. The girl studied him, then Lyanna, then the cloak. She smiled. Storm's coming, she said, and slipped away. Next dawn, thunder rolled across the marsh, yet no clouds marked the sky. At Moat Cailin, they found Northmen in mail bearing direwolf sigil. Lyanna's breath caught. She kept her hood low, voice roughened by travel dust. The guards waved them through with little scrutiny. Their horses climbed the King's Road into land where air smelled of spruce and distant snow. Jon inhaled deeply, grin fierce. It feels like home already, he murmured. They reached Winterfell at twilight on the eve of first frost. Smoke curled from chimneys, banners hung motionless, ravens cawed from broken battlements. The guards halted them at the main gate. Lyanna dismounted, drew back her hood. Gasps cut the dusk. One guard dropped his spear. My lady, he choked. Lyanna's voice trembled but held. Tell Lord Stark, she said, that his sister has come home. They were led through echoing halls where rushlights flickered. Servants whispered, eyes wide. At the foot of the spiral stair, Ned Stark appeared, hair threaded with gray, eyes hungry ghosts. He froze, absorbing the impossible. Lyanna took a single step. Ned, she breathed. He crossed the space in heartbeats, arms crushing her to memory. She felt his shoulders shake. Realized she wept too. When they broke apart, Ned's gaze shifted to Jon. And this? Lyanna knelt, pulling Jon forward. Your nephew, she said. Jon bowed awkwardly. Jon? Ned prompted. Jon, Lyanna confirmed. Jon Snow, for now. Ned's mouth tightened, shards of memory aligning. He looked at her, at boy, at the weight of years. Then he opened his arms, and Jon stepped into a home he'd never known. That night, in the crypts beneath Winterfell, Lyanna knelt before stone figures, telling them she had kept her promise. Jon was safe, alive, returned. Ned listened. Silent sentinel. She spoke of Rhaegar's death, of war's ashes, of the comet and the egg hidden in saddlebag. Ned weighed every word with stark gravity. At last he touched her shoulder. The realm believes you dead, he said. Robert will rage. Lyanna met his gaze. I will not hide again. Ned sighed. Then we must gird for storm. Jon adapted to Winterfell like seed to soil. Bran idolized him. Robb tested him with practice swords. Sansa taught him court curtsies. Arya challenged him to races across icy battlements. Even Catelyn, wary, could not deny his quiet grace. Nights he visited the Godswood, kneeling beneath Weirwood's bleeding leaves, listening for wolf voices in rustling boughs. Lyanna watched, marveling at how seamlessly past and present stitched into a single living moment. Yet whispers traveled south on raven wings. King Robert arrived for a feast, drenched in mead and nostalgia. When he beheld Lyanna alive, his knees buckled. He knelt before her, voice hoarse. "You were stolen," he declared. She answered calmly, "I fled." Robert's face mottled. Grief and fury war within. He gazed at Jon, black hair, gray-violet eyes, and staggered backward. "Dragon's whelp," he hissed. Ned placed hand on hilt. The hall fell silent. Lyanna stepped between kings and swords. "My son is no threat to your crown," she said, voice steel wrapped in velvet. "He seeks only the right to live." Robert's gaze burned on Jon. Then his shoulders sagged, battle lost. "7 hells," he muttered, turning to wine. Cersei watched from shadows, Lyanna scenting weakness. That night she sent ravens, plots hatched like vipers. Ned counseled caution. Lyanna refused exile. "We protect home," she insisted. "If war comes, Winterfell stands." Jon trained harder, dawn to dusk. Maester Luwin studied the dragon egg, pronouncing it warm, pulsing faint. Jon dreamed of cracking shell, of snow-white hatchling breathing blue flame. Spring brought ravens shrieking of war. Traitors at court, Lannister hosts on march, dragons stirring. Lyanna climbed Winterfell's highest tower, egg cupped in palms. Dawn smeared red across sky, the bleeding star. Beneath, Jon sparred Robb, blades flashing. Lyanna heard Quaithy's riddle. When the wolf meets the crow beneath a bleeding star, break the shell. Far below, a crow perched atop the Weirwood gate, feathers ragged, cawing toward Jon. Heart pounding, she lifted egg to sunrise. Heat surged, cracks spider-webbed. Black smoke spiraled as shell split. Flame-birthed, shred-winged creature pale as moonlight, eyes molten blue. Its first cry was both roar and howl. Jon looked up, astonishment blazing. The hatchling beat wings toward him, landing upon his outstretched arm without burning flesh. The courtyard erupted in gasps. Lyanna descended, steps measured. Jon met her halfway, dragon perched like living sigil. Mother and son exchanged a glance heavy with prophecy, now made flesh. In the hush, Ned Stark spoke a single sentence that carried beyond ramparts and through future. "Winterfell stands, with dragon and wolf united." Above them, the bleeding star faded into morning, but its promise lingered. Storm and fire, snow and blood. Yet also the possibility that old songs could birth new verses, sung by voices whose harmony the world had never imagined. And though battles brewed far to the south, in that instant the north breathed gentler air, as if even ancient stones recognized the turning of a page, the beginning of a tale where a boy born of dragons, flame, and wolf's heart might write the fate of kingdoms, not with sword alone, but with the tempered courage of 2 worlds reconciled within his beating chest. Ain't he? Smoke curled above Winterfell's training yard, where the snow-white hatchling preened upon Jon's leather-clad arm. Frost-rimmed wings flexed, catching dawn light in blue-sheened membranes, each beat stirring cinders from the banked hearths. The castle folk had named it Frostfire ere the noon bells tolled, half for the cold kiss of its scales, half for the searing breath it loosed when agitated. No maester's record spoke of dragons so pale, nor of flame that burned cerulean, yet here was living proof that the world's old ore was cracking like a river thaw. Lyanna watched from the shadow of the first keep, pulse steady despite the thunder of possibilities. Jon's laughter rang clear as sleigh bells while the hatchling nipped strands of his dark hair. Robb circled them, eyes wide, sword forgotten at his side. Arya darted forward to stroke the creature's neck, jerking back with a startled yelp when frost crusted her fingertips. Bran clapped into light atop Hodor's broad shoulders. Rickon squealed from the safety of Asha's skirts. Even Catelyn, guarded and pale, found herself drawn 2 cautious steps nearer the impossible. Maester Luwin hovered beside Lyanna, Valyrian steel quill dancing across parchment. "A miracle," he murmured, voice hushed with scholar's reverence. "Cold fire contradicts every natural principle. Yet, there it is." He pinched his chain's copper link, mind racing. "If dragon flame can freeze, what of its bones, its blood? The citadel will howl." Lyanna laid a hand on his forearm. "The citadel will wait," she said. "First we learn what frostfire means for the north, Lord Jon." Ned descended the battlements, cloak snapping. Lines etched by years of duty deepened as he surveyed the yard. Troops drilling, ravens launching, the hush of awe around the boy and his dragon. "We have little time for wonder," he said, voice low. "Ravens from King's Landing report Robert bedridden. The queen rules in all but name, and she covets what she fears." His gaze cut to Frostfire. "The lion will come north with claws unsheathed." Lyanna's jaw tightened. "Then let her climb the neck on broken knees," she replied. "Winterfell stands." Ned hesitated. "Standing is not enough." Robert's fragile peace cracked the moment he saw you alive. "Cersei needs merely whisper that the usurper's line is threatened by a Targaryen prince raised in secret. Lords will flock to her banner. Fear breeds faster than fealty." "Dim." Robb approached, cheeks ruddy from exertion and excitement. "Father," he said, "Jon's dragon might be small, but it breathes cold fire that hardens steel like glass." Sir Roderick tested it on an old breastplate. Shattered clean. Ned raised brow. A weapon none could foresee. Lyanna shot her nephew a measured look. "Or a symbol. One dragon does not win wars, men do." Robb blushed, chastened. Jon half smiled but said nothing, running a slow hand along Frostfire's ridged spine. The creature hummed. A musical vibration felt more than heard. 3 days later, Winterfell's council convened in the Solar. Ned, Lyanna, Maester Luwin, Greatjon Umber, Roose Bolton, Sir Roderick, and Hallis Malin. A map of Westeros lay unfurled, tokens marking armies in motion. Ravens reported Lannister banners moving from the Golden Tooth and River Run, under siege. The Vale closed its passes, Stannis raised ships in Dragonstone. Renly whispered at Highgarden. The realm was unraveling. Roose's pale eyes tracked tokens like a man choosing which sheep to flay. "The Riverlords drown first," he observed. "If River Run falls, Lannister teeth snap at our southern belly." Greatjon thumped the table. "Then we ride south, teach golden lions to fear true northern roar." Lyanna shook her head. "Bluster wins no battles. We must secure allies beyond the neck. Houses Manderley, Reed, Glover, and send word to the Brotherhood of the North March." Ned tapped the map. "I'll call the banners, but we march only with purpose. Our quarrel is with the crown if it threatens our blood." "Your blood hides a dragon's," Bolton remarked, gaze sliding to Lyanna. She met it unflinching. "My son is of both dragon and wolf. Let the realm decide which half it respects." Luwin cleared his throat. "Respect may prove scarce. Rumors already spin of a dragon reborn, of Targaryen plots. We must control the narrative. Present Jon not as claimant, but as ward." Lyanna lifted brow. "He is no bastard ward. He is my son, rightful by marriage." She produced the hidden parchment, the Septon seal from their wedding in Dorne, signed by High Septon himself under Rhaegar's cipher. Ned's eyes widened, Luwin whispered. "Sevas." Lyanna laid the parchment upon the table. "Proof that Jon is legitimate issue of Prince Rhaegar and Lady Lyanna of Winterfell." Proof that Robert's rebellion was built on a lie. Silence thickened, until Greatjon barked incredulous laughter. "Gain that to the realm, girl, and see how quickly spears point north." Ned exhaled. "We cannot reveal this yet. Robert may forgive your survival, but he will never relinquish the throne his war won. This parchment would ignite every kingdom. Lyanna folded the document. Ignite it must. Someday, the world will not mend by stitching fresh lies atop old wounds. Then, Jon's training intensified. Sir Roderick drilled him dawnlight to moonrise. Sword, shield, spear, mounted combat. Frostfire shadowed them, gliding overhead in widening arcs. As weeks passed, the hatchling's wings broadened, color shifting from snow white to pearlescent silver with veins of cobalt. Its cold fire could freeze a target solid within heartbeats. With practice, Jon learned to command a thin plume capable of shearing chainmail. He bore scorch scars along his gauntlets where frost flame licked but smiled through pain. Arya sparred him with wooden blades, nimble as a cat. Bran recited Valyrian phrases gleaned from old scrolls to soothe the dragon. The northern folk, wary at first, began leaving carved wolf tokens and smoked fish at frost fires roost atop the broken tower. Offerings of respect. The creature accepted with imperial dignity. One brittle evening, Jon and Lyanna walked the godswood. Snow whispering beneath boots. Frostfire perched in a leafless birch, camouflaged against pale bark. Jon turned to his mother. Why hide my name when truth burns inside me? Lyanna stroked his cheek. A name is armor or arrow. Wear it before it fits, and it pierces you. Jon looked to the weirwood face, red tears frozen along its cheeks. I hear whispers in dreams, voices calling me Aemon, Jaehaerys, even Aegon. Which am I? Lyanna's breath clouded. You are Jon. The rest will come when the world is ready, or when you make it ready. He nodded, accepting half answers. Do you regret leaving Qarth? Ashai? No, she said. Exile teaches survival, but home teaches purpose. By first thaw, Ned's banners mustered. 10,000 swords of the north, ready to march. Yet ravens brought sudden dread. King Robert dead, boar gored on a hunt. Joffrey crowned, Ned named traitor, in prison. Cersei's net had closed swift. Lyanna's scream echoed off winter walls when word reached her. She gathered Jon, Frostfire circling uneasy, and convened council. We ride south. We free my brother. Bolton arched brow. Great Jon roared assent. Luwin cautioned, King's Landing hosts 20,000, and the Red Keep scorpions. Lyanna's stare could cut stone. And we host a dragon. Ned's eldest sons debated command. Robb, fiery and skilled, versus Jon, who bore Frostfire. Lyanna called them both to the broken tower. Stark blood leads, she said. Robb commands the host. Jon shadows him, striking where dragon can turn tide. She clasped wrists to seal pact. Robb beamed. Jon swallowed nerves. But mother, if I reveal Frostfire, the realm will panic. Good, Lyanna replied. Let panic ride ahead of you. They rode in 3 columns through the neck. Greywater Watch ferrying supply barges along hidden canals. Howland Reed greeted Lyanna with tears, memory of tourney promises renewed. He swore his crannogman to her cause, and presented her with a weirwood-hafted spear, frogbone inlaid, calling it Song of the Marsh. Southward they met rivers swollen by spring melt. Robb's outriders clashed with Lannister scouts, leaving gold and crimson corpses tangled in reeds. Jon led silent strikes at night. Frostfire diving, exhaling ribbons of ice fire that shattered siege engines before wheels could turn. Survivors fled, babbling of a ghost dragon, of winter come alive. Panic indeed raced ahead, swelling like a storm surge. At River Run's walls, Tywin's siege engines burned blue, timbers cracking with hoarfrost. Edmure Tully cheered from battlements, while Lannisters withdrew in disarray. Lords of Riverlands hailed Robb as king in the north and trident. Lyanna tempered celebration. Titles weigh heavier than chains, she warned. Wear lightly until victory. Ravens from King's Landing carried threats and bribes. Cersei promised lordships for Brandon's children, pardons for Stark traitors, if they delivered Lyanna and the Dragonland. Robb returned one reply. A red-painted box containing the hand of a captured Lannister courier. Diplomacy ended. Inside the Red Keep, Sansa Stark wrote secret letters by moonlight, guided by Varys' whispered code. She smuggled maps of guard rotations, schedules, wildfire caches. Varys, intrigued by rumors of a cold dragon, saw in Lyanna a piece to tilt the board. Fire and ice in one brood, he told himself. Too delicate to crush, too potent to ignore. Meanwhile, Tyrion Lannister, freed from the Vale by guerrilla cunning, rode hard to confer with Robb beneath the twins. He arrived waving a white flag sewn from his own linen, escorted by Bronn clutching a singular chest. In Robb's tent, Tyrion opened it to reveal glass candles, obsidian black and smoky. "Dragon glass," he explained. "Mortal bane to certain foes we both may face should northern winters grow." Darker than usual, his mismatched eyes flicked to Jon. "Your Frostwern hints at old powers. I propose an alliance of wits over steel." Robb eyed the dwarf. Lyanna stepped forward. "Speak plain." Tyrion's smile was rueful. "The dead walk beyond your wall. My father ignores rumors, but I read the Black Brothers' ravens. A dragon of cold might stand against them. I would sooner wager on life than on Lannister gold." "Nan?" Robb considered, then accepted the chest. "Knowledge for safety. Fair trade." Tyrion bowed. "One more favor. Spare my sister's children if the city falls. They are as much pawns as any." Lyanna's voice sharpened. "If Joffrey hangs my brother, mercy dies with him." Tyrion nodded. Negotiations ended under uneasy shadow. The march resumed. At Harrenhal, Roose Bolton volunteered to hold the ruins with a garrison, citing strategic value. Lyanna sensed chill beneath his courtesy, but lacked troops to spare. She consented, leaving Bolton with private designs. Approaching the Blackwater, Robb's scouts reported Lannister host entrenched on open fields south of the God's Eye. Night before battle, Jon walked Frostfire along the riverbank. Stars shimmered on Blackwater, breeze stirring again, lengthening wings. Lyanna joined him. "Tomorrow you taste true war," she said. "Steel screams, men burn. You must guide Frostfire. Do not let it guide you." Jon looked to the dragon, its blue gaze luminous. "What if I lose myself in the fire?" "Then remember the wolf," she replied, pressing a carved direwolf pendant into his palm. "Ice and fire in balance. You are both." Dawn bled crimson. Lannister lines gleamed, spears bristling, Seaga towers braced. Robb's horns sounded, northern infantry advancing under gray banners. Lannister archers loosed, bronze shields rang. Cavalry clashed in thunderclouds of dust. Amid cacophony, Jon mounted a towering destrier, Frostfire clinging to backplate rigged with perches. He spurred sideways, flanking the main. When trumpets signaled, he raised gauntleted fist. Frostfire launched skyward, a silver streak. Lannister men gaped. Dragon tales were tavern bravado until icy doom spiraled overhead. Blue fire rained, freezing soil to glass, splitting siege towers as if chiseled crystal. War horses shrieked, legs skidding on sudden glaze. Knights toppled like hammered figurines. Jon rallied Umber spearmen through shattered lines, capturing 3 lion banners. Tywin, observing from rear guard, withdrew methodically, abandoning engines to frostbite. Yet victory cost. Greatjon fell to crossbow bolt. Karstark's sons slain in push to river. At dusk, crows feasted on frozen corpses that rang when broken. Robb embraced Jon amid cheer and mourning. "The dragon wins fields," he said, "but hearts grieve." Jon wiped blood frost from sword. "War spares none." Lyanna counted losses, fear blooming. Each triumph fed legend, and legend paints targets. King's Landing fortified. Cersei stockpiled wildfire beneath streets. Pyromancers whispered of green cataclysm. Sansa's walk with Joffrey on castle walls revealed caches disguised beneath sept foundations. She risked message through Varys sparrows. Wildfire under Baelor Sept, Guildhall Dragon Pit. The note reached Robb in enciphered form. A council at River Run debated strategy. Edmure urged direct assault before supplies dwindled. Blackfish Brynden suggested river blockade. Lyanna proposed infiltration. Sansa's maps offered secret postern at Mud Gate. "A small force could open the city for our host," she argued. Robb frowned at risk. Jon stepped forward. "I'll lead it," she protested. His life irreplaceable. But he insisted. "Frostfire and I can navigate rooftops, disable wildfire casks from above." Bolton entered, quietly voicing support. A blade in the dark cuts deeper than ranks in sun. Plan set. They waited, new moon. Jon's team. Arya, smaller than shadows. Jaqen H'ghar, a faceless man freed from river-run dungeons by mysterious sponsorship. Mira Reed, swamp silent with frog spear, and a half-grown Frostfire, now horse-sized, strong enough to bear Jon in gliding leaps yet still small enough to perch on ramparts. They sailed on a black-hulled sloop down the Blackwater Rush, hugging reeds. Jaqen's whispered Valyrian song lulled river spirits. Near the mud gate, Arya scaled slime-slick pilings, disabling alarm bell with a dab of pitch. Jon and Mira hauled chains, winching gate opened silently. Frostfire soared, scouting dark rooftops. They slipped inside. The city stank of privation. Refuse, fear, wildfire fumes. Lannister patrols prowled like fevered wolves. Jon led through alleyways guided by Sansa's charcoal arrows on stones. At the Sept of Baelor, they found barrels stacked beneath stairwell, emerald vapor leaking. Mira smashed clay plugs, sealing vents. Frostfire exhaled cold flame, freezing wildfire into crystalline shells inert. Similar sabotage followed at the Guildhall, the Dragon Pit. Yet candlelight glimmered ahead. Guards. Arya slipped blades between ribs, silent. Jaqen changed faces thrice to mislead sentries. As dawn approached, trumpets blared prematurely, Northerners assaulting Lion Gate earlier than planned. Jon cursed timing, sprinted toward ramparts to light beacon for Robb. On parapet, he found Joffrey flanked by Hound, surveying battlefields. Joffrey's eyes widened at Frostfire. "T Targaryen abomination," he shrilled, fumbling crossbow. The Hound stepped forward. "Boy, flee." Joffrey bolted. Sandor Clegane raised sword, gaze wary but not hostile. "You're Stark's bastard." Jon leveled blade. "Stark and more." Frostfire perched, hissing frost. The Hound, terrified of fire, relaxed at cold breath. "Never liked lions," he muttered, turning away. "Kill the Whelp King if you can." Jon ignited blue beacon. Distant horns answered. Gates shuddered. Northerners flooded streets. Stannis' fleet, bribed by Tyrion's loan of dragonglass mines, sailed upriver, raising stag and flame banners. King's Landing slipped into chaos. Inside Red Keep, Cersei shepherded Tommen and Myrcella toward secret passages. Lyanna confronted her outside Maegor's holdfast, sword unsheathed. "Stand aside," Cersei spat, golden hair undone. "You steal my crown." Lyanna's eyes blazed. "Your crown was stolen the day you plotted my brother's death." They dueled, lioness ferocity against wolf-mother steel. Cersei's dagger nicked Lyanna's arm. Lyanna disarmed her, blade at throat. "End this," she demanded. Cersei sneered, swallowing poison capsule of tears of lace. "I choose my own end," she hissed as life drained. Lyanna watched death claim her, sorrow dull as old bruises. Robb's forces breached throne room. Joffrey, cornered, shrieked surrender. Arya stepped from shadows, blade at his spine. Jon entered, Frostfire at heel. Silence reigned. Robb approached Iron Throne but stopped. Eyes turned to Jon. Lyanna advanced, parchment in hand. Maester Luwin, escorted by troops, read Rhaegar-Lyanna marriage writ aloud. Gasps rippled. Robin of the Vale, Renly, Mace Tyrell, all newly arrived, absorbed implications. Tyrion stepped forward. Blood of dragon and wolf, rightful heir by law. Stannis scowled but recognized stamp. Voices rose in council. Jon bowed head. "I seek no seat forged of swords," he said. "I seek unity against winter's death." He described others beyond wall. Dead things walking. Frost enemy greater than crowns. Lords murmured, doubtful. Frostfire spread silver wings, trumpeting icy flame that rhymed Iron Throne itself. Steel screamed, twisting under cold. Fear and wonder silenced doubters. Grandmaster Pycelle sank to knees. The prophecy, prince that was promised. Stannis grit teeth. Renly smirked. Robb and Aaron clapped childish glee. Only Robb smiled proud, placing sword point to floor. Then let this hall witness, Jon of houses Targaryen and Stark, called Frostborn, is protector against the long night. He knelt. One by one lords bent knees. Tyrell, Reed, Umber, even Sandor. Stannis bowed last, grudging. Jon stood trembling, boy of 11 facing weight of kingdoms. Lyanna pressed hand upon his shoulder. "You will not bear it alone," she whispered. He straightened, meeting gaze of gathered powers. "Rise," he commanded, voice clear, edged with frostfire echoed up. "We ride north. We forge realm strength at wall. When shadows fall, all houses will be one banner. Ice on fire, fire in ice." Outside, snowflakes drifted those summer's height. The wall sensed turning tide. Far beyond, others gathered, ice-blue eyes reflecting new star of frostborn dragon circling King's Landing spires. Its cry heralding a war not for crowns, but for the very breath of the world. And so the realm awakened to a dawn both colder and brighter than any in living memory. A dawn in which a boy with a dragon of winter flame carried hopes of 7 kingdoms, walking a path penned neither by prophecy nor rebellion alone, but by the stubborn, blazing love of a mother who had crossed the world to carve her child's name upon the face of destiny.